Right. So where do we start? There's a lot to talk about, and yet there's not really a whole lot that can be said, I think.
Yeah.
So there isn't really much that can be said. I mean, I've listened to this message quite a bit and kind of understand the sort of concepts. And I suppose if I were to arrive at any conclusion, it would be just that there's nothing really can be said, for the reason that it's not going to lead anywhere, because there's nowhere to lead to, there's nowhere to leave from, and at the same time, whilst I can say, or we can say, there's not a whole lot to be said, there's also no reason not to say as well at the same time.
Yeah.
So so that's that. So I just wanted to say, I've thought about this meeting in advance, and whilst I could easily have written down a whole load of questions and stuff like that, I just wanted to see just where the conversation would naturally go. And the only one thing that's popped into my head more than once, which is why I'm bringing it up now, is that I just wanted to say that, having listened to and watched a few speakers on this particular message, I really do like the way that you, unlike the majority of the others, the way you very often talk about how beautiful the sense of self is, and yeah, you say there's nothing right or wrong with it, and that's often what you'll hear from other speakers on the message. What I don't hear much from other speakers, and as I say, I really like hearing you mention it, is just that, whilst I guess the me's sort of predicament is tragic in a way, it's shockingly beautiful at the same time as well, isn't it? And it's miraculous that it's there at all,
Yeah.
And I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and it's totally illusory, but it feels so real.
Yeah.
Like there's already no one anywhere already.
Yeah. Yes.
And then when this apparent energetic something happens, but then it's seen that nothing ever happened ever.
Yes. And it's difficult to try and understand that, because coming from a sort of a perspective, if you will, where timeline feels real, what I hear when I hear you say that is that before the apparent shift, there was this apparent me, and then afterwards it's seen that the me never existed. And obviously that sounds like hindsight. That sounds like, that's certainly how I would see it. How I would interpret that, is that before the shift there's an apparent me, and then after the shift it's seen that there never was a me. Now I know that's from the perspective of somebody who is invested in real time, if you will, and yet I can also understand that following on from an apparent shift, whatever is left to talk can say that it seemed that it never happened, and in that I can kind of understand, or kind of in a way kind of see that there never has been anybody anyway already.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If
that makes sense.
Yeah. It is really crazy.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And we can talk, and you can talk about paradoxes and stuff like that, and it's really confusing, and there's not a whole lot of sense can be made out of it, and yet this very overused word, which is resonation, to resonate. You hear people say that all the time, isn't it? I don't know exactly what that means, but yeah, it feels like I resonate with this message, whatever that means.
Yeah, I guess it's some sort of recognition that there hasn't been an identity or self or me all along, and there's nowhere that needed to, there's nowhere that it needed to go, because it wasn't real to begin with, and nothing needed to happen in order to just be freedom for no one. It's just freedom. But it is beautiful that this journey, this apparent story is unfolding. And, you know, this apparent movement apparently still continues. It doesn't really, it is seen that nothing's actually happening, and time can appear real, but it's non-existent. Time does not exist. But yeah, the you know, the appearance of things are still as it is, as it always was. But yet it's so thoroughly unknown. Nothing is known, and no one is anywhere to know anything.
I love it.
But it's also beautiful that there's this seeming illusory me that feels like it really knows. It knows that it exists, and therefore it knows everything else exists and everything else is real because I feel real. And that's amazing that that is included in this freedom.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's absolutely nothing right or wrong with anything.
Yeah. Oh God, it's like I feel like jumping into some of these concepts and exploring them more deeply with you, but I know it's not it's not going to get anywhere. It's not going to, no questions are going to get answered. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm so tempted to say, right, okay, let's talk about time.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And try and see if we can sort of knock our heads together and come up with something. But I know that's absolutely futile. I mean, talking about time is such a big subject. I've said this to a few people that, since I've been listening to Non-duality, and before I got into this, I always kind of felt that the secret to understand, because I've always been really keen to try and know what this is, I guess, there's always been a sort of natural inquisitiveness about what the hell is this, and I kind of always and kind of intuitively have felt that time is at the root of it all, really, that if I can understand time, then I would kind of get a grasp, but then I would get the answers that I'm seeking. And just to give you a brief sort of history, I've never been a spiritual seeker. When I was in my sort of mid to late teens, I did start asking the bigger questions, as a lot of teenagers would do, and I kind of concluded that I'm not going to get an answer to any of this stuff, that it can't, and none of it can be known. I kind of quickly came to that conclusion, in the same way that as a younger child, I concluded, having been brought up as a Catholic and dragged along to church against my will, I concluded that there wasn't a God, because I tried to speak with him quite often and never heard back from him. So that was a conclusion I made then. I made a conclusion about, I kind of never went down the spiritual path. I suppose because I kind of felt that I wasn't going to get any answers. So I concluded about 30 years ago that I would just wait until death, and that upon my death, that's when I would get all the answers. And there's a big lightness in coming to that conclusion, because you can carry on with your life, not sort of weighed down by some of these bigger questions that you're not going to get answers to. So you can just be quite carefree about it. And then maybe about 3 years ago, following a period of maybe about 5 years of kind of synchronicity events. Just your simple, every time I looked at the watch or the mobile phone, it was always 22:22. And it kept in it, and it's just like, wow, that's weird. And a couple of years later, it's like, I'm still noticing this. And that synchronicity came to a head one occasion where there was this, I won't go into the actual story because I wouldn't do it justice, but there was a conclusion that arrived with just what was happening, coincidence, and that time, and just what happened in this particular moment. And I thought, right, that is it. There is definitely, undoubtedly, there is something in this. So the search began, and I got onto YouTube and I started looking at absolutely everything spirituality wise that I could. And I soaked it all up for a period of maybe about 3 or 4 months. And I thought, I'm not going to say no to anything. But so David Icke, okay, listen to him with an open mind. You name it. I just threw myself deeply into everything. Tried a bit of meditation. Just tried everything really hardcore for about 3-4 months. And then I came across this particular message. And within a few days, really, all of that previous 4 months kind of hardcore spiritual investigation stopped abruptly. And so for the last 3 years, it's just been this message exclusively, really. And I just find it fascinating and really enjoyable to listen to. And there's been a couple of sort of moments where you could maybe call glimpses, kind of, but I certainly couldn't tell you any stories about, like, I've seen nothing, or, you know, or any of that stuff. I haven't seen nothing and I haven't seen everything, but I kind of feel it, and I kind of get what's going on. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So, and here I am coming to the same kind of conclusion, or having reached the same conclusion that I did in my late teens, that you can't get any answers, except I now know that the answers aren't going to come upon death, because even death isn't going to happen. So yeah. Anyway, I promised myself I wasn't going to give you my life story when I came on, and here we are. I just shared it. But anyway, so that's okay. It is what it is. Yeah. So yeah. So I don't know. I know that waiting is futile. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Waiting for something that isn't going to happen, because this is it. Because this is it already. Yeah. It's inclusive of everything, which is actually nothing. Yeah. So yeah. So I find myself passing the time watching these sorts of videos and this message, and kind of going on walks and thinking about it, you know. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's good.
Yeah. 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 I mean, there can be a sense of waiting, and that's just what's happening.
Yeah. Right.
And yeah, the illusory sense of me it can feel like it's moving through time, but it's so not real that it's just, it can also not be noticed that there are apparent moments where time doesn't exist. It's just not noticed. And that not noticing is the no time.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's already like this illusory sense of me can seemingly pop up and stuff, but it's not really happening. It's not really real. There is already no one.
Yeah.
And it's pretty apparent.
Yep. Yeah, the no one is kind of the apparent me is kind of it's implied, isn't it? It's kind of hinted at all the time. It's supported just by the conditioning, you know. It's my glass of water, it's my, you know, my sunglasses, you know, my pain, you know, and how, and just how we interact with each other. You know, we're always saying you're my, we're kind of given this thing foundations, really, aren't we?
Mm. Yeah. It's almost seemingly reconfirmed by everything, but
Mm.
also everything is showing you that nothing is real. Everything is actually not false, but like it doesn't have true validity. There's a sense that, oh, nothing can be grasped, nothing can really be known. And every confirmation of me, my feelings, my thoughts, it's that's also seen to be unreal. It's confirming that there really is no one that has anything. No one owns we have no idea what a thought is. Thought is just a word. It's just energy. We have no idea where it's coming from. We have no idea what emotions are. It's just this pattern of, and maybe you could sort of remember, like as a child, you had these feelings and thoughts, but it was just what they were. They weren't defined. Already it wasn't owned by anyone. It was just an appearance. And where did it go a second later? It can't be found. Everything is illusory. Everything is just an appearance. Nothing can be like held on to. But then it is this pattern and habitual, oh, I know what that thought is. And then the story is made around it of why I felt that way and what that person did. And so it can be built on top of, and then the illusion can feel more real. And then other people are saying the same thing, confirming it, but it can vanish in a second.
Yeah, it feels like I'm kind of seeing through all of that, all of the story, even some of the more challenging parts of life, like maybe interactions with other people and stuff like that. So it's kind of seen that way. And I don't know if that's maybe just the conditioning that's gone on just from this message itself. Do you know what I mean? So I'm tempted to say that words are very, very difficult, aren't they? Yeah. I'm not going to try and pursue what, the thought that came into my head there, because I don't think I'd be able to express it in words. That can be the problem. You can start to trip up, can't you? Because I was about to say, from your perspective, and now Suzanne doesn't have a perspective. So yeah,
well, that's okay.
I'm not going to, yeah.
There can be an appearance of a certain like opinion, or you can label it as a perspective, yeah, but it's not owned by anyone. The brain is just, it can say something.
Yes. So there are sometimes if I was asked, are you a person? Is there a sense of a me there? I genuinely couldn't answer that question one way or the other. And I don't know if this apparent me, if it dropped away or the veil lifted, however you want to say it. And I don't know how noticeable that would be or wouldn't be. And I also don't know if you hear accounts of it suddenly dropping, but then you hear accounts of it not noticeably dropping and it being a slow process. Or it's not a process, but you know what I'm saying. And conceptually I get it, but that I'll brush that aside because that doesn't mean anything. So you see, so there are times where I couldn't say one way or the other if I'm a me, and yet there can be really sometimes, you know, just with anyone, I guess, there can be moments where the thought stream or a thought storm or however you want to phrase it will happen, and there's just this thinking about work or relationships or whatever, you know, and it's and you know, and kind of, you could say that is very much me-ish behavior. But even when that happens, there feels like there's an okayness with that. And it's kind of, I guess that's because there's potentially an inner voice that's saying that's all happening, and that may or may not be comfortable, but ultimately it's not owned by anybody. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, so I don't know if I'm using it as some sort of therapy. Do you know what I mean? But hey ho, if that's what's happening, then that's okay as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I don't know if it'd be very particularly noticeable. Yet there's been a couple of sort of glimpsey type events, if you will, where more than anything, it's just been an experience of something pretty spectacular. So I don't even know if that's even a proper glimpse. There was one where it felt almost as if it didn't feel like it was like I can't talk like there was a sense of me there or not. I don't actually know. There probably was, if I was to have to say one or the other. But it was almost as if I was connected with almost like, so difficult to say, but it's as if I was given all the inspiration in the universe all at once. And like I kind of almost, and I know this is a bad word to use, the word no, but it felt as if I kind of knew everything, if that made sense.
Mm.
And then when it stopped, and it lasted a few seconds, and then when it stopped, I thought, oh my God, I've got to put pen to paper. I've got to write this down. And I was thinking, and I was trying to hold on to it in my head. And by the time I got home, it had all gone. And then I put pen to paper anyway, and I tried to word it. And I knew that the words that were going onto the paper weren't what was just what I was connected to back there.
Yeah.
And I wrote something like, you know, and I wrote what I could see, like and I wrote something like a car passing by. It was dark. I was walking the dog late at night. A car passing by, the sound of the leaves blowing in the wind, you know, the feeling of the breath, blah blah blah. And I wrote I wrote a few of these things down listed, and I just wrote all happening at once, all happening together at once, and I wrote that down. So that kind of felt like it was kind of a glimpse. So if that sounds familiar to you, Suzanne, would you say that that's kind of what it's like for there not to be a me, but it's not experienced? Is it kind of like that?
Yeah, it is kind of like everything is just happening, everything is just arising, and yeah, no one is experiencing it. It's not happening to anyone. It's all kind of simultaneously just what's appearing to happen. So
Yeah.
including the eyesight, including the walking of the body is the same as the moving of those branches with the wind blowing. So you can't say, since it's not like a me anywhere, then all of it is just this sense of unknown equality and evenness, even with all of the flavored differences. So yeah, I would say that. And you said something about, like, you know, this, you would see some simultaneity kind of stuff that was happening. So when there's this conditioned sense of me, then it automatically makes meaning out of seeing 2 2 2 2 or something.
Oh yeah.
But what's really happening is, like, we don't know. It's kind of like, you can say the environment is just what's arising, And when there's no one there taking ownership or observing the environment, it's just the environment. It's just what's arising. And so there is no separation. So there's no, yeah, you can call it coincidences that are coming up, but it's just what's happening.
Yeah.
And there can be relative meaning about stuff, but there really is no meaning to it. Like life is just spontaneously, miraculously just appearing as it is.
Yeah, I did back then. I gave a lot of meaning to it, and importance and significance, and through that and that very brief sort of spiritual phase, it felt like there was a specialness. It felt like there was a specialness to me. Do you know what I mean? And this message has extinguished all of that pretty effectively, which isn't a bad thing really, because you can get carried away. Yeah, so would you say that there is also, so just going back to that sort of moment, that little brief sort of glimpsey type thing that I described, there's also a kind of sense of kind of warmth and coziness to everything. It felt like I was kind of being hugged and embraced, and that feels really, really nice. Can you relate to that?
Yeah, because this is unconditional love.
Yeah.
It can feel like home, you know, not for anyone, but there can be a sense of home, I guess, just in the body too. Not in the body, but the body can sense, you know, there's a feeling of, oh, okay, like this is it. No matter what's happening, no matter what's arising, this is it. And you mentioned like there can be this conditioned habit of, you know, when problems come up, a storm of thoughts, and a sense of maybe even taking ownership of certain thoughts and emotions and stuff. That can just be out of habit too. It doesn't mean that the me is there. It's already so ephemeral that that's just conditioning. And that might continue for a bit, just out of habit. It's just energetic, you know? Doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
And that's part of this. That's kind of like, we don't know what that is. It's kind of miraculous that these conditioned patterns are just running on their own. So even if that can trigger this sense in the body, and it can have this contracted feeling, yeah, that doesn't matter either. There's already no one there.
Yeah. There's a fair bit of the repetition kind of in the apparent mind of that's it as well, you know, whether it's good, bad, indifferent, you know, it's all inclusive.
Yeah, and even the questioning, is the me back, or did I lose it, or that's also this.
Yeah.
That's quite normal. It's just a thought. And it can again trigger something in the body energetically. That's just what's arising as well. It doesn't confirm anything. So this is so ordinary. So in a sense, it's like it varies so drastically that you really can't say like what will be the apparent effects, like for every individual body and stuff. Because it could appear really different, you know? Like people, the body can just become extremely lazy, but in other apparent bodies, they could become more energized or like fueled to create, or like we have no idea. It's just what's happening, you know? So like we don't know what will happen just energetically. Like there can be a sense that the me, because it really felt like it had control and it manipulated some stuff, just energetically there can be some releases, and then there can be this apparent like change. But yeah, that too is not, it's not that meaningful in the sense that it's just what's happening. It'll just apparently unfold the way it's going to unfold. And like you said, it could also just be so unnoticeable, the change. So no one can tell you like, oh, it happened for you because there was this difference and blah, blah, blah. This is so unknown. Nothing is known. Even the contracted sense of me is unknown. We cannot define it. We really don't know what it is. It just seems like there was this illusory sense that really felt like I was in the body, but we can't pinpoint what that is. And we can't really pinpoint if it's gone, because it's already not there. It's already not real. Just like everything else.
It's incredible to think that you would assume for the vast population of the planet that that's going on for almost everybody. It's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah. So I wouldn't talk like this to a person who was deeply in the story and in suffering, because it just wouldn't be heard and it wouldn't make sense. And perhaps there could just be energetically more of a contraction. It's an illusory sense of me, like this is my life and everything's happening to me. So yeah, I'm only talking like this because
I think when I first started to hear this message, although whilst I didn't have the opportunity to put it into practice, probably due to COVID, I would have, given the opportunity, would have really tried to preach this message to a lot of people, because that's probably just this sort of character, you know, to talk about it, things like that. And I'm kind of glad I haven't had that opportunity to, because I'm not convinced that it would have gone down that well with people. And now I'm thinking, I don't think I would really bring it up unless it felt like you would say yourself, you know, there was some, you know, there was an interest or an openness, you know. Yeah. Like a couple of times at work, a couple of people just randomly would say something, you know, I don't know how to describe it, but they would say something which does warrant a response, like straight out of the Radical Non-Dual Handbook. and that happened only a few weeks ago. I can't remember what my work colleague said or what I said back to him, but he turned around to me and looked at me after I said it, and he goes, "Is that some kind of Zen kind of saying?" I said, "No, I don't think so." and then he asked me, he kind of went to delve a little bit deeper. No, I then kind of said, by this time another work colleague kind of overheard, and then I said a couple of more sentences, And then I was asked a couple of questions about it, and then I thought, right, I can't answer these because then it's going to get out of control. So I kind of just stamped it out there, and then, sort of killed the conversation.
Yeah.
Because of course the concern is then that, people are going to think you're crazy.
Oh yeah.
Pretty quickly. Yeah. So
yeah.
I think just keep it to myself. He says agreeing to be published on YouTube.
Yeah, but at least this channel is purely for this, and if people are drawn to this, then they're interested in it. I mean, well, not necessarily, but it's filtered by me. The comments are filtered by me. Yeah. I have no problem with saying that, because I understand that this is probably the most triggering thing that can be shared, because it's getting to the very root of a very the person itself. It's challenging the person itself, and that is the most dangerous thing to say. Doesn't exist. It's so threatening, and it's so understandable that in a way it's the root of I don't mean this in a negative way. It's not really a negative word to me anymore, but it is the root of this arrogance. Like, I know. God damn it. This is my life. And and it's so understandable. And I'm also learning like what to say to friends, and because even I knew, like, I'm not gonna share this unless there's a real openness. But like, this YouTube channel is like takes up a lot of energy, because it's the only thing that is of interest here. So it just naturally happens. It's not like it's not a choice. It's just like what's happening. So if I talk to friends, then this comes up because that's all I'm doing.
Right.
And even then, I said too much, and even though I didn't want to,
Yeah. I guess there can also be different approaches, can't there? I mean, you could speak to somebody about this and kind of hit them with the main sort of concepts, but you could do it very delicately as well.
You think so? Like what?
Well, I wouldn't be able to give you any examples, so to speak, but I think so. I mean, so if let's say there was an interest, not in this subject, but kind of you just sense there was an openness to talk about some of the bigger questions in life. You could say to somebody, listen, there is no you. You do not exist. You are nothing. Do you know what I mean? And that could get quite a negative reaction if you'd had a few beers and you started to point at somebody whilst you were preaching it to them. And on the opposite side of that, I guess you could do it so I'd be up for the challenge of trying to do it gently, trying to say it gently. For example, here's an example. Tony Parsons, in this is just what I think I worked out, but in his earlier videos, he would say stuff which your modern day non-duality speakers wouldn't dare say. It'd be an outrageous thing to say, I think, just now in describing this message. But he would kind of, I think he'd come at it from an angle where he would speak right off the bat in very contradictory terms. There's a video that I saw where he started off saying, right, at the start of his speech, right, there are two realities, and that straight away is not non-duality, is it? Do you know what I mean? there's this reality, and there's the natural reality. So he would start off, and I think that was just his way of delivering the basic ideas and concepts almost as an induction to then being able to talk about it, you know, and totally destroy what he'd said earlier, you know, and contradict it almost intentionally, you know, to then kind of delve deeper into it, you know. So I guess there could be different approaches in that sense.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that is kind of nice. Yeah. Not invalidating the person's reality, because it does feel very real.
Yeah.
And it's also a part of this. That's inclusive of this.
Yeah.
Not negating it at all. It's all inclusive. But yeah, that is nice. Yeah. Saying that, yeah, the reality of the person is it's totally, I guess, I wouldn't say it's totally illusory, but it's an appearance. It appears to be that way.
Yeah. I think that's at one point where I kind of struggled as well, because I was hearing that it absolutely isn't. But you're not saying, but you don't say that. And also Tim Kliss doesn't say that either. Like this, like I think Tim has said that this kind of is reality, if you will. Do you know what I mean? This is happening, but it's also not happening, kind of thing. Whereas this message can be heard as, no, this isn't happening. Yeah, this isn't happening. Yeah, that this is.
Both are kind of, can be. It's so paradoxical. It really is.
Yeah.
So I can say, like, the sense of me feels really real. You know, there's a memory of Suzanne feeling like the trauma in her life was debilitating. So yeah, there's a memory of that. And that felt so real. It wasn't even questioned whether it was real. It was like, yeah, of course. And then there was a going about of the person trying to mend herself. And so it's real and unreal.
Yeah. And this kind of nothing and everything is interesting, isn't it? Because a lot of it is to do with is opposites, and opposites cancelling themselves out, and ultimately saying that there aren't either of those two opposites.
Right.
And we say that because there's just kind of wholeness, kind of thing. And we say so there is no nothing or emptiness. There is no nothing or emptiness which exists as nothing, which exists on its own. And I think sometimes this message can be heard that is the case, that there is a nothing, but there isn't a nothing, because there is an everything, and everything and nothing and everything and nothing cancel each other out. Therefore, there isn't a nothing and there isn't an everything, because they are cancelled out by each other. So there is only nothing being everything, but there isn't even that, because there isn't a nothing that could be everything. Yeah. And we always come back to the difficulty in words. So it kind of prompts the question, well, what on earth is this thing that is not a mixture between two opposites that don't exist? Right. And that's the mystery, and that's what we don't know.
Right.
And that can't be known. But we are, and here we are in this apparent material universe, just left with opposites in an attempt to try and describe something that doesn't include any side of any opposite, if that makes sense. So because that's what I find myself doing. I find myself listening to this message and saying, okay, so that person has said that, and that makes sense. Now, how does that, what happens to the sense in that if I apply this opposite to it? For example, you often hear non-duality talkers say nothing arising as everything, or or nothing appearing as everything, or emptiness appearing as a chair. And we always seem to start on at the beginning of that sentence with nothing arising as, or appearing as, and then something. So we start with emptiness and we say appearing as or arising as something. And then I kind of apply this kind of opposite to that, if you will. And I think that, well, you should also be able to say, and it should also be perfectly valid to be able to say that nothing disappearing as everything, if that makes sense. Because we're talking about arising as or appearing as. It suggests that something is created out of nothing, but we know that's not the case. But if we're going to use terms like appearing as, you should also be able to say disappearing as, because you hear people say that this is the Big Bang and it's also the end of the universe, simultaneously, kind of infinitely, if you will. So that suggests there's an appearance, or, from a Big Bang into, but it should also be a disappearance as well. Does that make sense? What I'm trying to kind of hint at?
Mm-hmm.
It's appearing as and disappearing as are the exact same thing. But it's interesting in the words that we use in this non-dual message that we always talk about something appearing as or arising as. Nothing's actually appearing or arising.
Right.
It's just emptiness and fullness at the same time, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, you use the word simultaneously. Yeah. So that kind of obliterates everything.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Opposites that are simultaneously happen.
Yeah.
And that doesn't make any sense. This is life and death simultaneously. What does that even mean?
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of just twists the mind. The mind can't get it, but it's using words that the mind can make some sense out of, but then using words like simultaneously, just like this is real and unreal simultaneously. What?
Yeah. And it's not in the words.
No.
And yet it is the words.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And who knows even what an energetic resonance is? We can say that because I guess it's the most not solid thing that we can somewhat point to where this unknowing is coming from, or where the unknowing is recognizing the unknown. But all of that is unknown too. Yeah. It's an odd desire or impulse to share something that can't be shared.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it is pointless, and it doesn't really have any purpose, and it's not getting anywhere. It's not meant to get anyone anywhere. I think it's just so, I mean, this is going to sound really positive, but it's not. It's just so magnificent. This nothingness, everythinging. It's magnificent for no one. I mean, I don't even know where that sense is coming from, or this utter unknowing is just, it permeates everything. It destroys everything. but in that apparent destruction, it's like there's just full on vibrant aliveness.
Nice. I was going to say, one of your, I don't know which video it is, but I really liked it. I watched it. It was maybe a 20-minute long video or something like that. And I watched it. I've maybe watched it about 2 or 3 times. And it's just when you were talking about, excuse me, I'm just going to put a jumper on, just feeling a bit of chill. It was when you were talking about kind of how terrifying it can be that when this message is kind of first seen or heard or whatever, and that's something that I'm really fascinated in, simply because, and I'll give you another little tale here, another little story. But I was at work maybe a year ago or something, and I was just I was working in an environment where I was with probably another 20 people, and we all work closely together, and everybody's always kind of can see each other, so there's no sort of hiding or whatever. And just while some other people were doing some work and I was just standing, just waiting, I kind of looked up to the ceiling, and I was thinking about time, daydreaming. I was thinking about time, and I imagined, and I was thinking about, right, if there's no time, there's nothing in front of this, and there's nothing behind it in terms of a timeline. And I had this image of a knife blade. Now, not the point of the knife going straight up in the air, but if the knife lies along that way, and then you've got the sharp bit of the blade there and the thicker bit at the bottom. And I imagined just this thin bit of the blade, a sharp bit of the blade. And I imagined of that being kind of this, and then there's nothing in front of it and nothing behind it. Just kind of as I had that thought, it kind of must have triggered. Well, it triggered an experience, and I was still looking up, just looking up into the ceiling, and it was almost as if, I don't know how to describe it, but it was almost as if something opened up, like there was almost like a crack that appeared. I didn't see anything, but that's the only way I can sort of describe it. And I tell you what, it was absolutely terrifying. Like the scariest sensation I've had ever. And that's all I can really say about that. Like it was so scary. It was unbelievable. And instantly the defenses went up, and I snapped myself out of it and got back to my work, you know. And that's why I was so fascinated by your video, because I felt there was something similar there. And now I'm thinking, if that ever happened again, what do I do? Do I embrace it? You know, do I embrace it? Do I have the nerve to embrace it? Because it was some scary shit, like really was. You know, and I sit and think about it, and I think, was that the opportunity, you know, for this to see, to see through, you know, the veil? Was that the opportunity to pierce the veil? I know it's just all story and fantasy and stuff like that. I get that, but I thought it was something interesting to share.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, scary on a magnitude you couldn't even put a number on.
Yeah, I mean, who knows if that will happen again, and who knows if that has any real meaning either.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, nothing bad will happen because there's already no one there to lose anything. But energetically, it can feel like, oh, it's going to lose its life, or it's death. And that is terrifying. That is the most terrifying thing for this. It's illusory though.
Yeah.
There's no one already.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to be lost because there was never anything to really, nothing could be held on to anyways already, but through meaning and story and apparent ownership, it felt like it really had something, but it was never the case.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do like when people use free fall, or yeah, for here it did feel like there was a sense of like really wanting to grab onto something, like a concept or an idea, or maybe the body also wanted some comfort or something like that. But yeah, there was just something that knew that there was just nothing. And that was it. That terror or that feeling of despair, that was it.
Yeah. Right.
And what is terror and despair? It's just energy.
Mm-hmm.
It's not happening to anyone.
Yep. Yeah, just going back to that experience I had at work as well. What was also bloody scary was the fact that I was in the company of all my work colleagues, and I remember the thought actually. So kind of, whilst it was really, really bloody scary, I also remember thinking, "Not now." Do you know what I mean? Not now.
Okay.
So that was almost as if, yeah, okay, yeah, I'm up for this, but this isn't a very good time.
It's like, seriously, now?
Yeah, I know. Can you wait until lunchtime?
Hold on.
Yeah. Yeah, very good. But yeah, but I get that there isn't any significance or any meaning or any importance attached to any of these events, because I can see that it's not going to lead anywhere. What I would be lying though if I didn't. I would be lying though if I were to say that I know nothing's going to happen, because I might have even said that earlier, but I know that as a concept, but yet, you know, I can't deny that there is a sense of, you know, if I go a walk today, could it happen on a walk? You know, that wouldn't be the reason for going for a walk, but you know, so there is a sense of kind of a desire for something to happen, and I understand that that's the me wanting, the apparent me wanting something for itself. And you hear people talk about it wants to be there to experience its own annihilation and all of that sort of poetic stuff. So I understand it, but yeah, but there's, you know, I can't deny there's definitely a kind of a waiting of sorts, and that's okay. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah. There's no way to stop that anyways. And
yeah.
This illusory sense can really, it just feels like it's on a journey until the apparent journey ends. Then it seems that there was never a journey, but yeah, there's nothing to do to stop that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that sense can be there, and it will never really get anywhere. There's nowhere to get to.
It seems to me, just from hearing accounts from people who kind of do discuss or do compare, you know, life kind of before and after, if you will, it seems to me that, you know, and you hear people say that nothing changes and yet everything changes. And I totally get that. It's so simple. It's because there's never been a me anyway. So there's never been a me that's done anything leading up to that apparent point where the apparent me dropped away.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So nothing changes. this is already it. This is already what's looked for. That is so clear to me. It's just, and it's rational. That is rational.
That's the whole joke of it.
Yeah.
Like, it's like there could be this energetic sense that, no, this isn't it. Something needs to happen. And I need to disappear or something like that. But it's already not there. It's already not real.
The me wants to be in on the cosmic joke, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it is fascinating here too, to like compare just what it was like. And it is seen really clearly, like, wow, there was this sense that just took ownership of everything that was happening and everything that the body was doing or thinking and feeling. But all of that still happens here. The conditioning, the energetic patterns of caring for people and thinking a certain way and wanting to improve a certain way. There's no one improving, but these thoughts can happen. I should be this way. I should do this. Next time I'll do this. That's just thinking. No one is thinking it.
Yeah.
And then the body can be triggered of what we can say, oh, I feel bad. But that's just the label. It's not happening to anyone. What is bad? It's just energy. It's just sensation. And next moment it's gone. It's so fleeting. It's not really real. But yeah, it can energetically feel like things, whatever seems to arise is coming from a center, and a center is like owning it, making it mine. And then that can produce the neuroses of feeling guilty about oneself. I should be another way, or, oh, I did so well. And so that can be layered on top. But again, it's illusory.
Yeah, it's like claiming all of the achievements, isn't it? They're my achievements.
Yeah.
There might indeed be achievements.
So-called achievements.
Yes.
But it is seen now, everything's so equal. There can be a preference for like, oh, I hope this thing goes well or something like that. I guess you can label that as an achievement if it goes well. There is this equality, like there is no better or worse. There is no, just what's happening.
Yeah.
And when someone's not there to really own it as my, I did really well, then it's just so fleeting. But again, the body can have a sense of feeling good if something good happens.
Yeah.
It's not owned by anyone. It's not happening to anyone.
So there would no longer be any sort of dread or fear or excitement about the future, but can there still be a sense of I know there's not hope because there's no time, but a sense of fingers crossed, trying to find another way of saying hope, but can there still be a sense for Suzanne that, oh, I hope this goes well, or I hope there's a good outcome to this?
Yeah. There's still a wanting for a parent life to go well. I don't prefer things to just like, explode and like be hated by people. Like that's not enjoyable for the body. And so even though time isn't real, apparently it still appears. So
Yes.
the mind lives in time. So there can be a thought of, I really hope I see that person, or I hope this continues to go well. That can be a thought, it can be believed in. And but it is kind of, there's an infused lightness to it all naturally. No one is doing that. There is this, it's appearing, but it's so unreal too.
And there's no sense of playing along with it, is there? Because there's nobody who could play along with it. Would that be fair to say?
Not necessarily, because so if someone is missed, then there could be a planning of when to see them in the future. So like these actions can happen. Or wanting something to continue to, do good. It's like energy can still be put into making sure it continues to go well and stuff.
Yeah.
It's what's happening. So like there isn't really a big analysis of what's happening. It's just kind of apparently unfolding. So when I say that, it sounds like a journey, it sounds like a timeline, it sounds like a progression. And when I say it's just what's happening, it seems like it's in time. It's just what it is. So the mind does, or the thoughts are there, and then the emotions and the actions, and so it's just what's happening. No one's doing it. And that's already the case everywhere. So yeah, in that sense, like really nothing changes. It's so ordinary.
Yeah.
For here, it does seem like there is a bit less self-consciousness, like caring too much about the body and what other people think of the body. It did get a bit lighter because there was a caring a lot here. So there's a seeing of a difference, like like this body has acne, and like there was a lot of self-consciousness around that, of people seeing that. But now it's just like, I don't know, the body has acne. It doesn't define anyone, but there's still a preference, like I want to eat healthy, so maybe it could improve or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
But there's a lightness to it, even if there's a little bit of habitual tendency to be aware of what another body might think. That's also kind of light. It's like the body can be triggered, like, oh no, and then it's like gone. Yeah. But that's just one example here. Like it carries so much,
Yeah. I would say that for the last 2 or 3 years, since whenever I started listening to this message, I would say that a lot of kind of conditioning has kind of faded out. And when I hear so many people talk in the way that you do as well, I feel there are similarities in that regard. Which is why I don't think that if there were ever this apparent lifting of a veil, that it would seem that different. Really, I don't think it would seem that different.
Yeah.
Be interesting, and I'm really intrigued. and there is, you know, there is hope. There isn't hope, but, but yeah.
But yeah, the hope, all of it is already this.
Yeah. Hope is a curse, really, isn't it? For humans.
If it's really banked on, then
yeah,
it could be a real downer. It'll lead to a lot of hopelessness if it's really like held on to as something like a savior, a hope.
At least we've got hope. You know, if you've lost everything else, at least you've got hope.
Yeah, I could see it in people like hoping that a situation will change which no one has any control over that, but hoping that a situation will change and then planning on a better future because of that hope. And then it doesn't change that way. Then it's hopelessness. And then still hoping that, oh, no, this time it'll be different. Like it's just a cycle. So I can see some people in my life just living on that circle.
Yep.
And sometimes it can't even be that apparent to them, you know, that they're on that circle.
Yes. Do you know, I think I am on that circle, but and I'm okay with it because it's just what's happening.
Yeah.
You know, it's from a financial point of view. You know, I've got these big fantasies about becoming really, really rich. And you know, and I shop. I don't actually shop, but I window shop for really expensive things. You know, and that's just a boyhood fantasy. You know, of being brought up in, you know, conditioned to want to become, you know, rich, and I've still got that. And if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But yeah, but that's interesting. So I'm kind of in that circle, but I see it for what it is, and it's just what's happening, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say that it actually kind of still continues here too, in a sense, but there is a lightness to it.
Right.
Yeah, like there's hope here too, to, you know, make more money and stuff.
Yeah.
And so actions can happen and things like that. Yeah, I guess there is just a general lightness to it, but again, things just seem to, continue as they were happening before.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just not so strongly believed in. Yeah, it's hard to really define exactly what the differences are. Yeah, I think it is the extra neuroses that comes on top of things.
Yes. Yeah.
So everything, in a sense, that cycle does seem to kind of continue. Like the body and the mind or the brain just lives in time a bit. And then maybe it's the illusory sense of me that adds on top of it. Like it's my timeline, it's my future, it's my past. But I do maybe think that the body and brain kind of just naturally lives in time.
And the illusory self is adding the importance to everything as well. You know, this has to happen a certain way, and it means a lot. You know, it's important.
Yeah. And I'm in danger if it doesn't go the way I do, and it affects me, like it defines me.
Yeah.
Again, the body can be triggered. The body can still feel fear and stuff like that. But yeah, when there is a personal identification with that fear, then it energetically can feel amplified. Maybe. That's just a guess. I don't really know. It's hard to separate, you know, like what exactly was this illusory thing that took everything personally, and the apparent natural way this body functions. Yeah. So suffering can continue too. The body can suffer. Yeah.
I've been listening to some music recently, and I feel like I'm hearing it differently to the way I used to. It's like maybe it's just what I'm listening to. I used to listen, well, I still do listen to all sorts of different types of music, but at the moment I've got this playlist which is just female vocalists, because I love the sound of the female voice, and it's from all ages, and there's maybe about 50 songs. So I'm listening to a lot of that, and a lot of it's really amazing, amazing music, sort of some amazing ballads and stuff like that. And I've never been one for tuning into the story in songs, like the lyrics. It's like I've always just been, probably because I play the guitar, or partly maybe because I play the guitar, that I kind of focus more on the sort of sound of the music. And I'm not listening to the story these days either. But what I am hearing in a lot of these songs is just how incredibly sad the human condition is. You know, and it's the sound of the music, and I know it contradicts what I've just said, but it's what they're singing about. You know, it could be lost love, or you know, whatever, and it's just how extraordinarily beautiful that is. And it seems almost wrong to see such beauty in such pain and suffering of people singing about the human condition. But I'm finding it like staggeringly beautiful. It's like when I listen to some of this music, it's almost as if I can sort of stand apart from the music and just see humanity there. Do you know what I mean? In this song. And yeah, I guess it's because I'm seeing the tragedy of it all in the fact that all these apparent people think that they're going to continue on forever and they're going to go to heaven after they die. Yeah.
Yeah.
That our love will carry on forever. You know, that sort of thing. And it's, it can bring a tear to the eye. And at the same time, it's the most beautiful thing ever as well. That's quite interesting, isn't it? How the two opposing things.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you hear music like differently now if you were to try and compare?
The meaning in words in songs are, I guess you can say, more meaningless. So in that sense, the flavor of the music has lost its meaningfulness.
Okay, right. Yeah.
So I like more beats. Like if it feels good for the body, I like more that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So not the mental stimulation and the emotional. Okay. Well, emotionally, I guess beats can emotionally trigger stuff too. I used to listen to, like, is it called kirtan? Like kind of devotional music. I used to love that stuff, but that doesn't really do anything for me anymore, and it doesn't resonate, I guess. Because a lot of music is kind of very, it is super personal. Yeah, but there is a beauty to it. There is a beauty. I can still appreciate it. I just wouldn't, the meaning of it kind of fell out of the lyrics, and
yeah,
that can be kind of sad. I know some people who they were so into music and now it's kind of gone, and that can feel really devastating if it was like a big part of your life.
Okay. Yeah.
Certain things can fall away that you can miss it for a while. The body can miss it for a while, but then it's okay, then it's just like,
yeah, I could understand people who've devoted a big part of their life to being fit, going to the gym, swimming, cycling. I can imagine for some people potentially that could all suddenly stop. That could be quite difficult. That could provide a few challenges, couldn't it?
Yeah. And it also seems to vary in the sense, like, at least for here, it kind of went in cycles of like, oh, everything's gone, like interests in things, but then it would kind of come back and then it would go. And so I don't know, it went in different cycles, like extreme laziness and then energy to create stuff. So that kind of came and went, and it's hard to say, because it's just constantly changing. And
and is there less interest in hearing other people's stories? And if that is the case, as I'd imagine it is for people who that there could be a tendency to want to kind of almost step away from society a little bit and become more reclusive. I should imagine that's fairly common.
I mean, that can happen.
Yeah.
That can understandably happen if the majority of people you're around will only speak about sports and what's going on in the news. And like, I do know someone who works like at a grocery store, and so he's in constant contact with people who only talk about small talk stuff, sports, and but that can be really draining all day, and I can understand that you don't want to listen to that stuff all day.
But then even the way people, if they're not talking about that, they're always talking about relationships with themselves and other people, aren't they? So can that be difficult to listen to in terms of not having a tolerance for it?
So that kind of seems to fluctuate. If I'm just describing what's happening here, sometimes it doesn't matter. Whatever someone is interested in, or if they're really just like lost in the story, sometimes it doesn't matter. Sometimes I can completely relate to their story and just say, oh my God, he did that.
Okay.
And it's just happening. The words are just coming. There's no belief in it. So like old patterns of ways of relating can just happen. But then there can be other times where it's just like the tolerance for that stuff is very limited. So there can be like kind of a wanting to distance oneself. I feel like it can just fluctuate. And maybe this is also a story, but maybe things will come into balance, meaning like there'll be times where you just need that. And then there'll be times where you're just like full in it and doesn't really matter. And you're in the drama, like, angry with someone and kind of yelling at them,
Yeah.
then it's like, yeah, it seems to vary a lot.
Excuse me 1 second, Susanna. I've got a little dog here who's needing needing a treat. That should keep him happy.
Oh.
Yeah. So basically what we're saying is that nothing changes, but everything changes.
Yeah, it's so hard to pinpoint exactly.
Yeah. Because just then when you were talking there and when you were saying there might be like sort of movement away from it, I then found myself wondering, well, you know, if that's the case, then that is expressing a desire to not want to be there, and therefore expressing a desire for things to be different than they actually are. But things can't be different to the way they are, because they are only the way they are. And that would be a trait for the me, wouldn't it? But what with, so it gets really tricky, doesn't it? Because it just always comes back to this. Things are the exact same, but they're not the same. Nothing changes, but everything changes. There's no investment in it.
That's a good point. Because even for here, there was a little bit of surprise in there's still being resistance to things.
Okay.
So, yeah, there can still be a wanting to not want things the way they are.
Okay.
That's also just what is.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'd never have thought of that. Yeah.
It just seems like so you know, the body can have these preferences. It's not really taken personally, even though you can talk about it like, oh, I don't want to be there. I don't want to be in this environment. He said like that. And so there can be that resistance. Again, that's also just what is. But maybe the me sense can add on top of it and really create more suffering around it. Like, if this doesn't change, like, I have to get another job like next week, or I don't know, it can like just add more drama to it.
And the me sense will come back and knock again and say about that issue. So it will keep coming back, it will keep revisiting that. Right.
Until I solve this,
my
life is not good.
So perhaps without the me sense being there, they can be an issue, but it's not, it's there and then it's gone. Right.
And the funny thing is like that can add to, potentially it can add to laziness, because there can be a seeming problem and like annoyance, like, oh, I should really fix this, and it's so fleeting. Sometimes there is no energy to actually do something about it, but the me sense has the energy to be like, oh, if this isn't fixed, this needs to be fixed. And you know, there can be energy in that. But sometimes there can be laziness, and it's like, well, there's agitation and resistance, but that sometimes happens here. Like, some things need to be fixed in the house, but sometimes there's just laziness too. Like, well,
I can relate very much to that. Very much so. But it's all okay.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, here's a question for you. So it's one of neutrality. It's one of sitting in the middle, or a position in the middle. We obviously we've talked about opposites, which are both positions, and there can also be a position in the middle, which sometimes this message talks about. how best to describe this? When we say something, we say X, Y, Z, and it's not good, and there's nothing right with it, and there's nothing wrong with it. I'm not describing this very well. Yeah, maybe I'll get more inspired, or something will come up in terms of thought that will help me ask the question, because there's no question coming up just now. But yeah, anyway, I guess it was about a seeming contradiction which I'd like to be able to understand within this message, which is a position of neutrality. But we say there are no positions, but yet neutrality in itself is a position, isn't it? And I was trying to apply that to us saying nothing right with it, nothing wrong with it. It's okay for X, Y, and Z. I don't know how to put it into words very well.
Yeah, there can be this expression that sounds like, in a way, nothing is a problem. Not everything, no matter what it is, that's already just this. That's already this unconditional wholeness that looks like anything and appears as anything. Yeah, it can sound like a position. And sometimes it can even be a position if the speaker subtly feels like this is more important than any other message, any other teaching, anything else. There can still be that in the character too. Like, oh, this is it. This is it. The thing that I'm seeing is that, so when this apparent happening, that really nothing happens, when this apparent center drops that was never really there to begin with, then it's seen that really nothing is happening and nothing ever happened. And all of these apparent things, everything is totally empty. And therefore all of the opposites are included in this, but it doesn't really truly have the meaning that the me can put on it. And there can be this sense like it's not even worth talking about anymore. So sometimes I can see like people don't even want to talk about this because it's so not worth mentioning. That's how insignificant this is and everything else is, or how significant this is equal to everything else. So yeah, I can see people just like, there is no point to sharing this because it's no better or worse than anything else. And yeah, sometimes there can't be the energy to even want to attempt to describe this in words because it's not even, there's no point, and nothing has a point. But not to sound negative, it's like nothing has a point or everything has a point. And that kind of sense of freedom is just like, then why not play? So then a playing can happen. Nothing has a purpose anyways. Everything is totally equal and neutral, which are just words, but like there's just this sense from this unknowing. Everything is unknown, and the value put on things is just this mental thing, and there's nothing right or wrong with that. That can apparently continue, but it is seen that everything is totally special and or nothing is special.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
So you might as well just have fun. Not you, but
Yeah.
this is all just play anyway, so I don't know if I, answered that, but
It was good to listen to. I don't think I put my point across. I don't think I understood what I was wanting to say. I think that was just, sometimes you hear people talking in this message and you hear them say something and that puts something in your head. Oh, right, that's something I need to go back to and revisit and try and work out. Because I do tend to sort of, like many people do, I guess, sit and ponder on certain things and try and, analyze them and work them out and whatever.
yeah.
Not that it gets you there, of course. And I think that was just a little residue of something I'd heard, which I've tried to put into words there, but I failed miserably.
Yeah, I think I kind of understood a bit. Because sometimes there is this sense of like, wow, there really is no point to sharing this.
Yeah.
Because the illusory me sense isn't even a problem. Like, it doesn't need to drop.
Yeah.
Nothing is gonna happen. Nothing needs to happen. And there's just such an equality to everything. So yeah, it is really pointless, but energy just seems to be here to
Yeah.
do this. So it happens.
And it's incredible that there are so few people, relatively speaking, that tune into this message.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because it offers nothing to the me.
Mm.
And everything else pretty much is offering something. We're telling it to do something, or it needs to change. It needs to get somewhere. Yeah, it's amazing. It's really amazing.
It really is, because you've got this apparent me that can hear this message and then project a carrot on a stick, and it sees something that it wants, and it's like a moth to a flame, isn't it? It's it's hurtling towards its own annihilation.
Yeah.
By doing it, by pursuing it. And that's what it does, knowingly. Yeah. Crazy. Yeah. But the message is an absolute annihilator, isn't it? It destroys absolutely everything and itself. Yeah, there's no way you can go with this. There's no way you can take it.
Yeah, it's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, yeah. I do like to just think about the fact that everything is it. There's no it. There's no it. I get that.
Yeah.
But I love thinking about, and just, when any kind of sort of conclusion is sort of made mentally, oh, right, I've landed on this conclusion, and then just there's this little voice that says, but what I mean? That's not it, simply. It's like, it's like everything is it. Like the turning around to see it, it is in the turning around to see it, isn't it?
That apparent movement that's not really happening, is it?
Yeah. That's, there are some things that are said that I hear, and I kind of sometimes are quite happy to glance over, or let them sort of do that, because I know I'd be interested to jump in and explore it, but there's nothing to be gained from that. Like this whole idea that nothing is happening, like there's nothing happening. It's like there's apparent movement, right? I'm going to go off on a tangent here, right? So it's coming back to time. How are we doing for time, by the way?
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
we've gone over. Oh, we've gone over.
It's okay. You can ask this question.
Are you sure? All right. Okay. Thanks. So let's take an animal, which is an animal, a prey animal, and it sees a predator, and it sees its prey, and it sees it running there, and it knows that it's going to run to there, and it's going to attack it there. So it's billions of years of evolution have got it to that stage, apparent billion years of evolution. And we're saying that there's no linear time. But the animal is looking at its prey, and it's calculated that in 3 seconds' time, my dinner is going to be there, and that's where I'm going to get it. And yet there's no real time. Like Jim Newman would say, is there time? No. Is there time? Yes. Is there real time? No. Is there cause and effect? Yes. Is there real cause and effect? No. And that's stuck in my head. I love that. Absolutely. So what about this apparent? I mean, is it a cop-off just to say, yeah, but it's just apparent? And it's not, there is no movement, because it seems like there is movement to that, and that there is an animal who doesn't have a self, unquestionably, which is projecting where its prey is going to be in distance, which science would say is the same as time. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know where I'm going with this, but
yeah.
You know, so it's, I guess it's kind of stuff like that, you know, I guess there aren't really any answers to, are there? Are there? Can you give us an answer to that?
I mean, I can attempt. I just feel like this brain measures time, sees progression, sees cause and effect. So it itself is stitching that together automatically. So that's what it sees. That is how it computes things and makes sense of things, but nothing can be made sense of. Nothing.
But is the animal not doing that as well, though? But it doesn't have a sense of time. You see what I'm saying?
So maybe its brain, I don't know what's going on in an animal. Maybe its brain also is able to compute that and see time and measurement to calculate that. Its brain's doing the same.
Its brain's doing the same task that our brain is doing, in that sense. That we've got an owner who's doing it all, haven't we? I guess.
That claims it all.
Yes.
Yeah.
And maybe it's as simple as that's the only difference.
Maybe. Yeah. So the brain can't help but see time, can't help but see the cause and effect. And so that continues, apparently. There was still like, oh, what caused this? But like this happened. So then that's why this apparent energetic happening happened. So that kind of continued after a while. But it was really seen that there was no cause. It was just this apparent story that was unfolding, but there's no definitive rhyme or reason, and you can't really say like this happened because of that. It's just what the brain kind of computed and made a story out of. And it is really convincing though, and still it can feel convincing, like, and there can still be an interest, like what exactly is the me sense? What exactly is it? But there always is no answer. You can guess, and there is guessing here. There's an attempt to explain, but always there's really no answer.
Yeah. Well, I think that's as good a place to end as any, Suzanne. Yeah, cool. I've really enjoyed the talk. It's been fantastic.
Me too.
Yeah, been really good. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. So you're okay with it being posted?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, no problem at all.
Nice. Do you want me to send it to you too?
Oh no, I'm okay. Thanks. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm okay. Yeah. Okay. Great. Excellent. Well, we'll do it again sometime.
Yeah.
That was great. I look forward to watching your other videos. In fact, you've got a video which came out at 6 o'clock, I think. Yeah. I'll go and tune into that one. I do like your videos you're doing outside, the exterior location ones. Yeah, good. Yeah. Nice.
All right.
All right, Suzanne. Thanks again then. Okay, bye-bye. See you.